Today for our daily cancellation, we canceled Doug Mhof. Now, if you don't know who Doug Mhof is, he is the second gentleman. And if you don't know what the second gentleman is, that's the name we apparently use for the vice president's husband. It is, frankly, kind of an embarrassing title for a man to hold, but then Doug Mhof is an embarrassing man. Over the weekend, it was revealed that Mhof, who has been married to Kamala Harris for about 10 years, had an affair that ended his first marriage, his previous marriage. Fox News reports, second gentleman Doug Mhof, the husband of Vice President Kamala Harris, admitted Saturday to having an extramarital affair during his first marriage after a bombshell report by the Daily Mail reported he got his children's nanny pregnant. Quote, during my first marriage, Kirsten and I went through some tough times on account of my actions, he said in a statement to CNN. I took responsibility, and in the years since, we worked through things as a family and have come out stronger on the other side. Mhof did not return Fox News Digital's request for comment, but gave the statement to the Harris-friendly news network hours after the Daily Mail story broke. The affair ended the marriage, according to the Daily Mail, which reported the nanny was also a teacher at Mhof's children's school. The report said the woman, who Fox News Digital is not naming, did not keep the baby, though it is unclear what happened to the baby or if Mhof has ever been involved in the child's life. Now, and first of all, can I just say, you did not come out stronger on the other end? It's like the idea that, well, you had an affair and it made your family stronger. No, you're not married anymore. It tore your family apart. Your family's not stronger now. And there's, in general, affairs do not make a marriage stronger. Hopefully a marriage will survive it. It's not going to make it stronger, though. You've actually permanently weakened your marriage. Permanently. In any case, I've read reports elsewhere that the nanny mistress may have had a miscarriage. And I don't know. I mean, is that the case, or did they employ more proactive means of ending the pregnancy? Or was the child born? And if so, has he been neglected and banished the same way that Joe Biden has shunned the granddaughter that his son Hunter had out of wedlock? There's no way for us to know for sure. We just don't know. Now, I would normally say that the marital affairs of the second gentleman are not relevant to voters. And I would still say that here, there are countless reasons to not vote for Kamala Harris. The fact that her husband got the nanny pregnant 15 years ago doesn't even make the top 50 on the list. But even if this has no electoral significance, it still matters. And it matters for one reason above all, that Doug Mhof, the guy who ruined his first marriage by sleeping with and impregnating the nanny, is now on a crusade against so-called toxic masculinity. Indeed, a headline in the Washington Post tells us that Mhof himself is, quote, the antidote to toxic masculinity. But what is toxic masculinity, and why does it need an antidote, at least according to Mhof? Well, here he is in an interview with CNN in 2022 explaining.
There's still a bit of a stigma with the notion of men taking a step back and being openly supportive of a woman who has a bigger role and a bigger job than the man does. Are you trying to intentionally destigmatize that?
Definitely.
You think about it.
I do, not at the beginning, because this was a no-brainer, but now that I'm in the role, and you really see, like, not all men naturally would do this and would push back. And then there's this toxicity, this masculine idea of what a man is that's out there that is just not correct.
Now, he's right, by the way, at least about the first part. Not all men would be willing to play first lady or second lady, even worse, to their wives and become a stay-at-home husband. I wouldn't be a stay-at-home husband. Providing for my family is my fundamental purpose on earth, and I would never give that up. Now, fortunately, I have a wife who certainly would never want me to, but that makes me toxically masculine, according to Mhof, who continued to speak out about this subject in an interview with MSNBC the following year. Here's what he said then.
Should we just talk about masculinity for a moment? Has being second gentleman changed your own view of perceived gender roles or what it means to be a man?
This is something I've thought about a lot and something I've spoken about a lot. There's too much of toxicity, masculine toxicity out there, and we've kind of confused what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine, where you've got this trope out there that you've got to be tough and, angry and lash out to be strong. It's just the opposite. Strength is how you show your love for people. Strength is how you are for people and how you have their back and how you stick up for other people and pushing out against bullies. I mean, that's what I believe it is. So every time I can speak against this toxicity, we're seeing it with our younger people, we're seeing it in our discourse, in our politics, in the media, you're seeing it as it relates to so many of the issues that we're pushing back on. So I think it's a problem, and I'm going to continue to use this platform every time I get to speak out against this toxic masculinity that's out there.
Now, we know that first ladies historically are given some little project to go out and do so that they can feel important. For Michelle Obama, it was lecturing us about our bad nutrition. Jill Biden, for her part, has mostly been given the task of changing her husband's diapers. And now we know what First Lady Doug Mhof will be focused on should Kamala win in November. He'll be sent to the front lines to lead the war against toxic masculinity. Kamala may be a childless cat lady, but she's not a single childless cat lady, which means she has a husband that she can parade around as a mascot for male feminism. The fight against toxic masculinity will go into overdrive if we have a female president with a henpecked husband like Mhof. So things are going to get very cringy very fast. But I can't deny it. Mhof is the perfect spokesman for this issue. After all, the only truly toxic form of masculinity is emasculated masculinity. In other words, toxic masculinity is non-masculinity. A man is toxic if he is not masculine. Now, this is not how the term is used, of course, by people like Mhof. For them, masculinity is toxic when there's too much of it and too much emphasis on it. You heard him say, this idea that men are supposed to be tough is to him toxic. He lives in a delusional fantasy world where our culture's greatest problem is its overemphasis on toughness and strength. But that couldn't be further from the mark. Like so much else that we hear from Democrats, it's the opposite of the truth. This is the problem with the term toxic masculinity. In practice, it seems that toxic masculinity can either refer to traditionally masculine traits that are now wrongly regarded as harmful, or actually harmful traits that are wrongly associated with men exclusively. So if it's used in the first sense, it's obviously degrading and damaging because it tells men that their natural masculine dispositions are somehow disordered. There's nothing wrong with telling them to be strong or encouraging them to exercise control over their emotions. Obviously, these messages can be delivered the wrong way, but the fundamental point is good and important. The problem in our culture isn't that boys are being thrown in a box or forced to conform to some strict notion of masculinity. Again, it's the opposite. In fact, with how men are raised from childhood, too many boys are given no instruction on how to be men, no example to follow, no guidance on how to grow and mature in their masculinity. As the left likes to remind us all the time, we're not living in the 1940s. We aren't. And that means that the era of the strong and stoic man ended a long time ago. We're now living in the era of drag queens and feminism and gender fluidity and fatherless homes. Most boys these days have no clue how to be men, no idea what to do with their masculine energy because nobody's ever told them or shown them. And if anyone does come along and says, well, this is what masculinity is all about, in order to be masculine, you should do this, they're condemned by people like Doug Mhof. Now, if toxic masculinity is being used in the second sense, used to describe actually harmful behavior, well, then it unfairly blames masculinity for bullying or narcissistic tendencies that have no gender. Right? Then you're just taking, there could be like bad things that a man does that are actually bad, but then if you come in and say, oh, he's being toxically masculine, well, now you're just like slandering all of masculinity because of the actions of this one guy. And if you don't understand why men might take issue with that approach, all you have to do is imagine how almost any woman would react if I said that, gossipy, materialistic bimbos have toxic femininity. That would be, at the very least, an unnecessarily inflammatory way of addressing the problem of materialistic bimbos. But worse than that, it would suggest that femininity, taken to an extreme, results in dumb bimbos who spend their husband's money on shoes and purses. So it seems to say, well, it's okay to be a woman, but don't be too womanly. Now, of course, nobody ever does talk about toxic femininity, and the reason we don't talk about it is because we recognize how insulting and demeaning that concept is. We also recognize that it's not possible for a woman to be too much of a woman. There's not a problem of women being too feminine. But with men, that's the kind of message. Now, as I said, the real toxicity, to use Doug's term, is when men reject masculinity and when women reject femininity. Doug Mhof knows something about that. Cheating on your wife and fathering a child with a nanny is, in fact, it is toxic behavior. It's not toxically masculine behavior. It's toxically unmasculine. Because a man's job is to protect, provide for, and remain loyal to his family. Mhof failed in that regard. And now he wants to lecture other men about how they should behave. Now, I'm certainly not above listening to the wisdom of other men, especially men older than myself, who have something worthwhile to say about what it means to be a man. But this guy has no wisdom on that issue or any other issue. He's obviously struggling mightily in his own life with what it means to be a man. We don't need to hear him pontificating on the subject. He should save those lectures for when he's looking in the mirror. And that is why Doug Mhof, the second gentleman, is today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.